morning, just like you to be aware of something. You simply had a thought to have your eyes closed, and your eyes immediately responded. You didn't promise them anything, you didn't scold them. You simply sent them a message about what you wanted them to do. I wonder if it's possible, or we could think it's possible, for us to communicate with all the rest of our body in the same way, simply by what we wanted to do. I think it may be. Your eyes are closed. And now at this point, let yourself be in touch with your breathing. And this morning, as you let your attention go to your breathing, notice that there are simple movements which you make, allowing the air outside of you to come inside. That invitation from you to your body to allow the air from the outside to come in, and to carry the nurturing elements of that air throughout your body, the oxygen. And maybe for these few seconds, as you take the breath in, you could join that breath and move with it throughout your body, every part, bringing nurturing throughout your body, including the tips of your fingers and your toes, all through your body. You may become aware that as you let your attention go to your breathing, your mind feels more alert. I'll also give yourself a message that your body can relax, and maybe it's already done so as a result of you taking a trip with your own breathing. Filling our bodies with breath helps our muscles to relax. So here you are now. Your eyes are closed. You're in touch with your breathing. Your mind is alert. Your body relaxed. You can feel safe in this room with the people that are here, supported physically by your chair, which connects with your back and your bottom, and the floor, which connects with your feet. Now let yourself go deep inside to that place where you keep the treasure that is called by your name, your treasure house. And as you move to that sacred, marvelous place inside of you, and approach this place where you keep that treasure, notice your resources, your ability to see, to hear, to touch and taste and smell, to think and to feel, to move, and above all, your ability to choose out of all of that of which you are aware, that which at a moment in time fits you well. And perhaps you can also become aware of your ability to sort, S-O-R-T, to sort out of all of that which you have, that which fits you well at this time, and that which once fit you well but you will no longer have any use for it, and let it go. And as you let it go, can you smile and thank that peace that you are now letting go for what it did for you, and now you no longer have any need of it. So in gratitude and thanks, you let it go. Now let yourself become aware of what it feels like to you to give yourself a message of appreciation for you, to give yourself the courage to take steps into places you have not yet been, to give yourself the love that helps you to feel bathed in yourself. And as we open this day today, perhaps you can feel, with what we have just done, that yourself is coming in a fuller and better position to take in what this day has to offer. Feeling connected and whole, and then giving yourself permission from wherever you do it to taste everything that comes your way, but to swallow only that which fits you. And perhaps you can become aware how in the past you ask yourself to swallow things which did not fit you at all, but which, for some reason, mostly because you didn't want to disappoint anyone or didn't want to feel different, you acted as though something that did not fit you, and you swallowed it. And perhaps at this moment, wherever that occurs within you, you could give yourself a commitment that however enticing, however stimulating, however authoritative this tasting seems to be, if it really doesn't fit, thank it for making its appearance and let it go by. Now again, be in touch with your breathing, your body comfort, the alertness of your mind, the beauty of yourself, and the excitement and the possibilities of evolving that which you have even more fully. Now when you feel like it, very gently bring yourself fully here and let your beautiful eyes open. And if any sounds or movements want to come out of you as you open your eyes, let that happen. Feel body movements wanting to come out? Let them come out. Let them come out. Don't stifle them. Now take a look who's behind you, who's in front of you, who's beside of you, and really, beside taking a look, get up and present your beautiful body and self to them. Present this morning something that started to grow in you or question in you, something that started moving in some way that you'd like to share, ask about, whatever. Well, just because a bubble isn't here right away doesn't mean it won't come. Come. So the way is open from time to time. Yes, sir. Thank you for remembering that.
I have a question about the equal person relationship.
Fine.
I don't think this is really a contradiction, but I'd still like you to address it.
You're Peter, by the way, aren't you?
Yes, I'm Peter.
Good. Just in case anyone forgot. You would want people to know, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Why don't you have a little practice? Just a little practice. And just pull yourself up into your beautiful self and then look at everybody and say, I am Peter. You want to try that just for fun? You don't. Well, how about trying it for your learning, if not for fun?
I am Peter.
And isn't that nice? Don't you like that? Because if he can do it, you can do it.
The question I wanted to ask was about parents and children. Mm-hmm. And I know that there's a need for a equal person relationship there too. And at the same time, I know that sometimes parents, in trying to do that, kind of abdicate responsibility and get the children very confused and try and make them somehow, the children make all the decisions for themselves and so on. How can parents kind of assume a healthy responsibility in saying, I will make certain kinds of decisions that need to be made and yet still fully respect the personhood of their children and keep alive that kind of relationship rather than the hierarchical relationship?
Well, let me tell you off the top of my head, and then gravity will bring it down. I think what we need to do is have a clear distinction between leadership and equality. There is no contradiction in there. I feel absolutely on an equal basis with all of you, and I hope you feel that way with me. That has nothing to do with how we deal with leadership. And I think that's a difference. That's a difference. Now, you brought in another thing that has to do with children, and that is, if we look at the condition in terms of what a child can do for themselves at the point of birth, there's very little that the child can do for himself or herself at that time. What the child can do is to, through the sounds of crying, and we're beginning to see sounds and looks of laughing, but through the emotional manifestation that the sound that the child has, the child can signal for someone out there who has legs and arms and so on available to them for their use. So that's what the child has at the beginning. All right. And so therefore, if there isn't someone around who will offer their arms and legs, that is, the legs to move, arms to hold, and so on, and to find food and all the rest, the child will die. See, what you're talking about is a very important thing. We are born into a life-death situation, and the people around us do have the power of our life and death. First, because we cannot take care of ourselves. And this has been one of the things I think that when parents don't know that they have this responsibility, and indeed this is literally true, then many of the parents who don't really know that don't know how to help their kids take on the responsibility for themselves. What they do is they just continue a dependency relationship, okay? Now, when every one of us here, I'm sure, in some way, had parents who did not know that they were in a life-death relationship to us. They didn't know it. They would look at us, and like people look at babies, and you know they're vulnerable, but I don't hear very much talk about the vulnerability of babies to adult teaching. I don't hear much of that. I hear it when the little children are assaulted by their parents, or there is child abuse, something of that sort. But what's important to remember is that adults don't have it very straight about what's the difference between leadership and equality. And so they don't do very well teaching the children. And if there is one thing that I like to leave everybody with, is a clear distinction that our equality has nothing to do with the functions that we give ourselves for how we manage leadership. My definition of leadership, by the way, is the ability to create a context in which all participants are empowered. And if we look at that into some of the up-to-date, I don't know if up-to-date's a good word, ways that we bring up children, it's to help them to become able to care for themselves as soon as whatever it is they need has developed. That is, when the teeth have developed, that the kids can chew their food, and they get food they can chew. When their legs have developed to the point of where they can walk, that they're permitted and encouraged to walk. And that now we know also something else, and that is that even before our legs work and our arms work to do different things, already inside of us, in the side of the little child, are forming pictures and of feelings inside that later will be manifest in terms of what they do. So to have things clear for the child. I mentioned something, I think it was yesterday. If a pair of parents are fighting in front of a child, it happens sometimes, that the parents will then quickly become aware after the fight is over to tell their child that they had a fight, and all those tough voices that the baby heard had nothing to do with their love of that child, so that the reality can be straightened out. I don't know how many of you have had experience of regressing people, and coming, as you get back into the regression around the time, even pre-birth or birth, what you will find are vivid pictures of what happened to that child, and see, from what I know is if everything isn't clear, then we make up the meaning of pronouns, and we assign values to things that may not have been assigned clearly. And so this, I think, is the basis of a lot of the nightmares that kids have. It's the basis of a lot of the feelings that children have that they don't know where they come from. And it's not too different from a practice that is now beginning to get into hospitals, for which I'm delighted. When a person is under anesthesia, it doesn't mean their ears don't work and their eyes don't work. Doesn't mean that at all. It only means that what they're taking is disassociated from the pain centers. And so we found, and I think this is an unarguable point at this moment, the talk that goes on in an operating room under anesthesia affects the person. And that it's like messages that go for health or illness. This is a literal experience. Some years ago, I was at a party, and one of my young medical friends told me of something that was happening that he couldn't understand. He'd taken out a little child's tonsils, and the tonsils weren't healing. He said, "I've never had such a thing before." Well, I had been fortunate enough to have done some work with David Cheek, known about what David was doing. And so I asked this young man, whose name was Robert, what had happened. What was the talk during the taking out of the tonsils? She'd been given a light anesthetic and was, for almost all practical purposes, out. Oh, he said nothing. And I said, well, listen, wait a minute. What did you do before you operated on this little kid? He said, oh, I operated on a woman with throat cancer. He said, now I remember something. When I was taking out her tonsils, the nurse said to me, will she live? And I was thinking of the woman that I had just operated on, and I said no. Said, I know exactly what to do. So I asked him to bring his nurse and get the parents and the little girl. We went to his office, and I put a blindfold on her, and I told her that she'd heard something that was she thought was meant for her, but was not. And so what I did, induced a light trance, and That merely means so that you can let yourself be into the experience. And then we went over this, and so the nurse asked the doctor, will she live? He said no. Then I intervened and I said, who are you talking about? Are you talking about Elaine or somebody else? Oh, he said, I'm talking about Mrs. So-and-so. Well, I said, well, what about Elaine? Oh, she's just fine. And healing started immediately. So these are things to take a look at. And one of the things that I watch, I have done a lot of work in the past, I'm not doing that much right now, of children between the ages of a week old and a couple months old who get into all of these violent throwing up and vomiting and not sleeping and all this kind of stuff. And one of the things that I have been had to teach the parents to do is to teach their hands, because it goes with holding and tone of voice, touch and tone of voice. Teach their hands how to be relaxed around the child, and at the same time, in this relaxed way, to share with the child their fears and what they're doing about it, or their joys and what they're doing about it. And it's almost like a magic potion. Because what's happening is, the way I put it together, is that our right brain is the place where all the meaningful learnings about ourselves take place. That part that we call our intuition, that we call our sensing, that's the real place where, if we could, for lack of a better way, to talk about where the human being really resides, the essence of the human being. I consider the cognitive part merely the function, the form of what is in the right brain, or what is in the intuitive function. And the left brain makes all the maps and does all that kind of stuff. So I have more and more respect for the kind of learning, especially in young children, people that are out in anesthesia, or in some way in a sleep, same thing. Our ears, and particularly when our eyes are closed, are avenues for bringing in information from the outside, as so is our pores. And so it becomes very important that we know that because the ears are open and the skin is open, and we happen to be asleep, that does not cut off the intake. Does not. And now we know interuterally that ears are already able to take in sound and skin to take in information. And there's more and more evidence that many ideas are formed even before the child gets out of the womb. So much of what I do actually also is to help in the adult life, so to speak, to recreate situations that can now be more clearly worked out, like that business with the doctor. The pronoun, will she live, was taken by the child, as it almost always is by a child. Any pronoun to a young child is taken as meaning themselves, because they're the center of the existence. And many people talk very sloppily and not specifically at all. So we have lots of ideas about things that don't fit us. But when we come in the world, how the people around us talk and deal with us form this powerful basis for our learning. I remember a young woman who was horrified at any kind of anything that had hair on it. And also, in another piece of this, she felt that her father absolutely hated her. Well, here was what we would call a phobia on one hand and a rejection on the other. So when I did her reconstruction, I found out the following. Her father was an Italian man, and her mother was fair-haired, and I think she was English or something like that. And this kid, who right now is an adult, had heavy, curly, black hair. A very attractive girl. But what turned out was that when she was born, Her mother and father had had some kind of a wager about what color hair this kid was going to have. She was the first one. And so the father, who was a kind of a jokester, when she came out with all her curly hair, he said, "Look, she looks like a monkey." And this was his joke. Well, all that she had taken out of this was something that was negative, because he was a kind of a tough kind of guy. Well, when I saw her, she was still into the place of the feeling of rejection about her father. Then when we got to this birth part and this began to come out, I said to her, she said, "That's impossible. My father doesn't care about me, and he really meant I was a monkey." I said, "Is he still living? Why don't you call him up?" She called him up. She called the mother up. And they were able to talk to her about that. Phobias disappeared. And she was able then to get a new connection with her father. So see, we have to make sense out of everything that happens. We cannot let it go by. And it doesn't matter whether we're 1 day old or before we're even born. We still have to make sense. The human organism has to make sense out of what's happening. And that means we have to make intellectual sense and emotional sense. But none of us know what the intellectual sense of something is until people talk. But you know how much people know before they talk? How many of you have watched children see how much they know before they can form words? Let's see. You all had kids. There is no stupidity going on there. And all those things that we've learned, which for me, I'm confident of the fact that everything that we're doing in adult life that either troubles us or gives us joy is something we learned before we could talk. And for me, childhood schizophrenia begins when speech would ordinarily come. And so what is so fantastic is when I got to the point of recognizing that all that we basically learn is done before we're a year old, really. Then it's easy to understand how people get all these funny ideas. Nobody intended them. Nobody intended them. But the more I learn about communication and how easy it is to make assumptions, even when we know the words, what happens to the children when they don't know what the words are. It's interesting. See, actually, we're very logical as people. Like a little baby. A baby knows that they're the center of the world. And why? Because they're so helpless in the world. And everybody behaves like they're the center of the world. So everything that's in the world is related to them. There's no differentiation, except through hands and tone of voice. And the kids don't know what to make of that. So anyway, it sounds to many people a little scary at the beginning when I start talking about that everything, that you know everything where you are. You know absolutely everything. But you don't know you know everything. And everything you're doing right now is absolutely logical in terms of the sense you made of what's going on. There isn't anything that walked into you. It's all very sensible. Makes sense. So the question is how to find the key to help us go back, like with that doctor, and get the pronouns right, and to hear the verbs, the tense of the verbs, and to find out with whom am I really talking. What does it really mean? All right, anyway, so in one sense, it's all a tragic cosmic joke, what happens to us. I'll give you a little illustration of something, and maybe you've seen this many times. This has to do with how kids learn, and then kids eventually grow up to be adults, and they take with them what they've learned, you notice. A little kid is being told by, let's say she's 4 years old, let's take a little girl. Her mother has told her about telling the truth. Of course, you know, to be a nice person, you should tell the truth. Now, her mother is on the telephone one day, and she is saying, "No, I can't come for lunch, I'm sick." So the mother hangs up, and the child says, "Mama, are you sick?" "No, I'm not sick." "Well, why did you..." Never mind. That's none of your business. 10 minutes later, the child is in the sandbox, and the mother tells the child to do something. The child says, I can't, I'm sick. And the mother says, I'll teach you to lie to me. How many times do you suppose this is repeated? And that mother, I absolutely would swear, has no idea that what she has done has modeled for that child the direct opposite of what she's asking the child to do. This is still part of it. And that mother's not perverse. Because for her, adults trying to do something for themselves, in that case, I happen to know about this one, somebody called her that she didn't like, and she couldn't say no to her. So she made up these excuses. For that mother, that adult, this was a totally different arena that had nothing to do with teaching her child. And so when her child repeated what she had done, the mother never connected that. See, that's why in family therapy, when you bring all of these things together, then it's very clear what's going on. But it has nothing to do with perversity, because this woman would think that this is what she's doing because she can't say no, and completely unaware that she was modeling something for the child and punishing the child for her modeling. That was not the same as her requirements for how the child should be. So what does a kid do? When a kid gets punished for something they see the parent do, which is opposite from what the parent tells them that they should do. And how can a child tell a parent what I'm telling you now? But a therapist can, or some adult can. And you know, so much of what I've done with families is out of this nature. And making it clear. Anyway. All right, now, what I like to do, see, tomorrow we're going to be working on some applications, but what I'd like to do today, at least at this part, is I'd like us to start now. I think I'll use this, because that doesn't show up very well. And let's look at a little geometry for the moment. You can't see over there, can you? How shall I do that? Well, I'll tell you what. Let me see if it happened. Let me see if I erase this. What's going to happen?
Actually, we can see the pad better than the board.
You can see the pad. So should we put the pad up here?
Well, put the pad up here.
All right, but because I don't want to. See, I can't stand up there if you're going to do that.
Well, we're going to push the table away.
Oh, I see.
I want some maple bunny. Come on.
You got some behind you.
That's it. A little action. You want to put it down? Okay, put this.
All right. That's good. Then we'll put that over there. Now can you see that? What about over here? See that, everybody? Except when I stand in front of it, I guess. All right. I want to teach you a little math. Well, I don't know if I will teach you. I'll present it to you. Who knows what gets taught anyway, huh? All right. First, I'm going to give you a mathematical formula that I made up. It's new math. 1 plus 1 equal 2. 2 plus 1 equal 3. And 3 equal 1. Now that's really our formula. Now I don't know if you know what kind of sense that makes to you. Let me show you what I mean. I can do it. Peter, would you bring your friend beside of you? You mind doing that? Find out her name, then you can introduce her to me.
Have the opportunity to be up here.
Well, I'd like to have you here. How is that? For the moment, anyway. Okay. Would you be over here? And would you join them? Okay? The three. There are going to be three over there. And would you bring... would you three come up here? But be over here, right here. Be over here on this side. Okay? Okay. Now, I'll have you two be this 1 and 1, and you two be this 1 and 1. I'll tell you what it is now. So you just back off a little bit, and you back off a little bit. Okay, all right. Just a little bit. Now, 1 and 1. Man, woman, for lack of a better word, we'll use this husband and wife, father later, and mother, okay? All right, here's a single one. 1. Just turn 1. You turn 1. You turn 1. You turn 1. Now, that's a pair. 1 and 1. Okay? Now, when those two get together, and they have a third, we have now 3. 1 and 1 are 2, and 2 and 1 are 3. Okay? So you got together, and put your hands like in a handshake together, and let that be symbolic. Now you come and be an outcome of that. Right here. Okay, just right here. All right? And you come and be an outcome of that. All right, okay. Now, 1 we produced a son, and 1 we produced a daughter. I just want to have the universe here. Now for these newborns here, they are the third one in the triad. But for them to grow up to be whole, they have to be able to take from both the man and the woman and themselves so that they then become a whole human being. That's what 3 = 1 means. Now, how they're going to be able to do that depends totally upon how the pair interacts. Totally upon that. Whether or not a child has the chance to become really whole depends upon, at the beginning, the interaction between the man and the woman. Now, so 1 and 1 are 2. That's the pair. That's this picture. 2 and 1 are 3, which is the beginning of the family, where we all were. 3 = 1 depends upon then the wholeness of the individual. How whole she becomes and how whole he becomes depends, will reflect in who you pick as a mate for future generations. That's how it goes. So, when we come to pairing, which is the single most important factor in determining the possibilities for the young child to get some kind of wholeness. Okay? All right. Now, while I'm up here, just to review a little bit from yesterday, I would like you, in your pairing now, maybe you'll sit right here. You're lovely and pure. This is a child, a lovely and pure, and you're a lovely, pure one over here. All right. In this particular family, you are the obvious head, and you stand up there tall, and you have your little woman at your feet. That's what you do. A little woman at your feet, would you go at her feet? Okay, that's good. Now that can be very benign because he can pat her on the head. He doesn't have to put the finger out to her, but he can pat her on the head. But that's where that is. Now over here in this one, we have you are down on the ground looking up at your wife. That's good. We'll have that one. That's very good. Okay, that could be any variation of worship. Now, here is this child. Would you get up a minute? Now, she's got to go someplace there because the very nature of what this is means she has to take a side. She can't have both. She has to take a side. So where are you going to go?
With the mother.
Right here. Where are you going to go? In this pair, this is your parents. Where do you think you're going to go? With Mama. All right? Now, look how she is doing that. Look how she is doing that. She's putting herself, and this has nothing to do with her perversity, but this happens so often. What she has done has been, in effect, to say, I'm going to be on Mama's side, a protector of Mama, but look who the new pair is in the family. Now, she can't possibly grow up to be whole in this kind of experience because she's already out of time and out of place for this situation. Now, let's look over here. Where do you want to go?
I'd go with the mother.
Of course. So you go stand beside a mother there. All right, now, how is he going to be able to get anything really from his father that's useful? Because already it's in a position where it can't be. One of the things in our society is children have not been able to take freely from both parents that's helpful to them. Because what one parent had was often in some way denied by the other parent or put down by the other parent. Now, if we forecast ahead a little bit for this young one over here, one of the things she'll learn, she's a woman, she'll learn that women are potentially weak and should be taken care of. That's one side of her. So she can turn out to be an outrageous flirt. At the same time, she sees herself as superior to her mother, so that her relationships with other women oftentimes would be distant. And she's probably a prime candidate for getting involved with married men. Why? This kind of thing is happening to her. Okay. You can see why, and along the way, one of the things that could be happening with her is that she gets very early into sexual difficulties. She, either that or she's having lots of difficulties with her mother. If mother happens to be ill, one of the things that will be happening is that she will have a lot of guilt about all of that. So let's suppose I see that family. This is what I see right now. I want to work this out so that that child has the opportunity of clearly taking what fits for her from what's there and to be able to get from the outside what she needs. But this is already something that does not permit it. Over here, here's this male. Now, this male at this point in time has to cut off his identification with his father. All right? One of the reasons is because his mother is between his father and himself. Now, she may be doing this because she wants to protect her son from how weak and passive he is. She doesn't want to hurt his feelings. And she'd be giving messages to him he should be different from the father, which a child takes as should put my father down. At the same time, why doesn't my father take care of me, and why isn't he up on his feet, and why does he let my mother run him? These are all familiar to you, aren't they? All right, all these kinds of things prevent us from doing our 3 or 1 kind of thing. It's like we have to make ourselves out of 1 and not 3. All right, and now, when all these people, here, see, you were down, that's right, and you were down, you're down. All right, now, let's just see what happens when the pairs, the marital pair, are up on their own feet. Now, when you're up on your own feet, what happens for you when your parents are up on their own feet? All right, she can come and stand between them or in front of them. Okay, that's one thing she can do. Sometimes, when this has gone on for a long time, children are scared, and they still want to divide the parents because that's familiar. All right, where do you want to go when those two are together?
I don't want to go anywhere.
You don't want to go anywhere. You're just going to stay outside. All right, would you take an embrace, the parents?
I'm sorry?
An embrace each other. Embrace each other, parents. Fully embrace each other. Now, what do you want to do with that one?
I want to be a part of the interaction.
You want to be a part of the interaction. Now, here comes something very important. And that is, if the parents don't know how to say to you, this is not your place right now, there will be more trouble ahead. Well, see what happens as you try to get in there. Now, there's a marvelous thing that could come up right now, and that is while your husband is struggling to keep you to himself at this moment, and your son is wanting to come in, you got a chance now to defeat your husband by saying, oh, never mind, dear, let him in. In which case, the husband has lost. Is lost. So, can you join him now? And as your son approaches, to look at your son and say, love, this is not for you right now. This is for your father and me. My lover boy and me. And for father to say to son, this is not for you right now, this is for me and my lover girl. If you want to do that. And so then, and you will probably not feel very happy about it, but both of you get supported so that you know that this is a clear thing. So just for fun, as you go there, each one of you tell them. It doesn't work for just one to tell them.
Love, this is not for you right now.
Wait a minute, I have to get your thing here.
Love, this is not for you right now. Just stay right back. I'm with your father.
But no, put it in your terms. Who are you with? You're not with his father. Who are you with? You're with my what?
I'm with my love.
Yeah, right. And my husband, my love. Yes, my lover, whatever it is. See, that's also an important thing. I hear families always talking, or many times talking about, a woman will talk to her child about her husband in relation to her, but she won't call him her husband. She'll call him your father. So, okay, now you can...
My son, my special one.
Marvelous, that's good.
This is not for you right now. This is a time for me to be with my beloved, my wife.
And then just do it. That's right. That's just do it. That's right. That's right. Now, that's the most comforting thing a kid can get, as both parents are in agreement and being clear about it is who they're with. He may not be all that happy, but he's comforted by it. He's comforted by it. Yes?
With the relationship that you can sort of visualize.
Sorry?
With the relationship that you can sort of visualize between son and mother, how is she feeling right now? How comfortable do you think she's feeling?
Who?
The mother.
Well, that's a very good question, so why don't you ask her? The question was, how comfortable is a mother
Yeah,
feeling?
how comfortable were you pushing your son away, being that, it was a sort of a dependency relationship or a close relationship with you and your son? How are you feeling right now, separated?
I was okay with it because I really wanted to be with my lover.
It's a very important question that you're talking about, because if this can't happen in the family, the child has no chance.
Yes, right.
The child has no chance. And of course, if a woman is teed off with her husband and she's not straight about it, this is a marvelous way to make the kid the cause.
There's some more dynamics in that, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yes, some really deep dynamics.
That's right.
It
That's right.
will take the whole weekend to explore.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, with that, just that type of relationship.
Yeah. See, what I said before, it's easy, really, to see we're very orderly. There is no mystery about it. It's only a mystery if we don't know how to look at it. Yes. Well, let's have the, where is our little telephone here?
Could you say something about this model of what you're explicating here in relation to non-traditional families, single-parent families, lesbian couples raising children, extended families in the same household?
Still the same thing. Still the same thing. And because you're talking now about a form. First of all, two women cannot produce a child. So for anybody to behave as though that could happen.
But many lesbian couples are raising children from birth.
Wait, let me finish.
So the child's experience would be of having two women parents.
No, let me just show you something here, because I think this is an important point that has to be cleared up. Everything starts with a beginning, and that's the egg and the sperm. Okay? So we make beginnings separate from child care. Any adult can give child care to a child. It can give good child care, it can give bad child care. Any pair of people that are combining to say that they're giving child care, the effect of their interaction is just like this. Just like this. Whether it's a grandparent and a mother, because we have a lot of, quote, one-parent families, so to speak. There are no such things, but it looks like it, because the other parent that was present isn't present anymore. But the child care function is in the hands of the people that are not necessarily the people that were the original sperm and egg people. But still the same interaction on the pair level is just as deadly or enhancing. So when you talk about, let's say, a lesbian couple, it's just as possible for a lesbian couple to play the game of who's on top as it is for anybody else, or who is blaming and who's placating. So this relationship up here, why don't you come up here now and let me do something? You just stay there for a minute. You come up here and you come up here. If you want to. Come. Okay. Now let's suppose that here is a child in here, and this is the woman, and this is her oldest son, and he's the second son. All right? Over here is the mother, let's take it like this, and this is her father, and you're over here, okay? All right, over here. Now, here's her husband right there. Frank over there is your husband, okay? And what he did is he died in glory. So would you be in glory over there, okay? And you were the favorite child of your father. And besides, he's kind of old now and he needs taking care of. So you bring her, you two come together to live with him. All right. Now, your mother is in this house too. But she's still very busy out in the outside world. And she's kind to you. Here you are, right here. She's kind to you and all of that. All right. But one of the things that happened is when you were growing up, she always knew that you preferred him to her. Always preferred him to her. Now, when you're back in the house, the one that she takes more to is this one. Come on up here. This is your, can you get up here? Yeah. All right, okay. So this becomes your little girl. However, what you're doing here is you are subtly letting her know that she could do better than what her mother did. All right. Now, then, of course, you're never going to confront him because you got a rule that says, oh no, I can't do that. But when she disciplines her, then she comes to you and you pat her. That's right, you pat her. That's right. Now, so now we're getting to the same mess as we did before. Do you see what I'm saying? The label you give people doesn't say anything about their interaction between them. Now let's go over here. Okay? And what you have here, this is your son. Now what you had a succession of, well, you had two, really. You married when you were very young. And there's the one right back there with that lovely beard. That's the one you married when you were very young. And he was about 30 years older than you. You were 14, and he was 44, okay? Okay. And so the marriage didn't last very long. However, just long enough to get him, okay? And you had a family that was all over the United States, and you kind of did a topsy arrangement. You're nice, okay? All right. Now, one of the things is in yourself you always feel little. You don't really feel like you're standing on your own feet. So then here is your next husband, okay? So he's around here, but you got to, come on, here. You wanted to take care of this sweet young thing, you know? And, but then she got too much for you, and so you got a divorce, okay? All right, so you're over here. But, however, this little boy you liked very much, so he comes over to see you once in a while over here. You don't live there anymore, but kind of see you once in a while. And every once in a while you drink a little too much and a few things like that. But you're a very loving man, okay? All right, now, you are going to be telling him, first of all, you're very happy that he has that relationship over here, but you keep telling him, now don't you be drunk like him, and watch out now. When he comes back with stories about how you are, then you get angry with him because of what he's saying, and so he can't have a connection with you, okay? All right, now let's take a lesbian pair. Would you be a lesbian pair? Is that all right with you? Male homosexuals are also becoming parents. Now, the lesbian part has nothing to do with the caretaking part. What has to do with the caretaking part is the relationship, all right? So would you stand up and you get at her feet? Like that. If that happened, you're going to go into the same spot as you did before, because sex plays no part in this part. I've seen no relationship between how people interact and sex, none. All right, or come on up periodically. Would you do that, both of you, to each other? Okay, all right. Then kiss and make up. That's good, that's right. Now the kid's going to help in that one to kiss and make up. But it's the same identical thing. These people can also be standing on their feet and equal with each other, and allow the child to be able to take freely from both of them. And that also allows the innate abilities of the child to show, just like it could be here. Come back in the family, and here she is. Those two have connected to each other very well. So you are very clear that this child belongs to her, and you're not going to override what she does. And you are going to be able to carry a relationship here that is central, and that she is in the place wherever she is, and it's all clear. The same thing can happen over here if you were standing on your own feet, to be able to allow him to have what he can have with this man. He's not bad because you divorced him. You don't have to ask him to deny him. You can be joyful at what he gets, and you could give him your response to it, but you don't have to give him messages that there's something terrible about that. So I'm glad this point came up. Form has nothing to do with the interaction between people. Nothing. Has nothing to do with sex. Sexual partners can blame, placate, be super reasonable, irrelevant, or congruent. So that's important. One of the problems, though, in one-parent families, any woman that's disappointed in a man, whether that's part of the lesbian, that particular lesbian pair, whether that's part of a one-parent part, for my money, which is the same as if a man is disappointed in a woman and he's trying to bring up a child, or in women, that the child's sex gets affected, the gender gets affected by the attitudes. So if there would be a lesbian pair who hated men and they were trying to bring up a little girl, that would show, and that would bind the child, and this is what is important. But you don't have to be a lesbian pair to have these kinds of feelings. There are plenty of women running around the world who think that men are shits, excuse me. And that's directly related to their fathers, and there are plenty of men running around the world that even the score. So what's important, and what we need for our IFC, for the new life of all of us, is to be able to find room for all of the parts that we are, and not ask the children to take sides among the people who give nurture, support, or direction, which is the whole business of child care. And to remember that loving between people has nothing to do with the labels. It is an experience in interaction. I don't love you because you're my mother. I don't love you because you are a lesbian or a male. I love you because of what happens between us. And so when those things get all separated, then we can go at this more sanely. Does that help what you were asking?
That answers it.
Good, thank you. That's a very good question. So you see, from that point of view, any kind of arrangement can work, and any kind of arrangement can't work. There is nothing holy in the form. Yes?
While you're still with that.
Come.
Just a word.
Come. Hi there.
Back to my question yesterday. Could you say just a word about what I have noticed here? You're really talking about the same thing that Mara Boyne is talking about in triangling, it seems to me. Can you make some kind of connection that will help me?
All right.
Tie that in.
See, I think the triangle is right there. Let me just do something with you on that one. Can I go up here? No. In my latest book, Step by Step, with Virginia Satir, I show you what I have done in pioneering a nurturing triad. Every one of us on the face of the earth knows about something called the triad, the triangle. And in most lore, it is looked upon as a negative thing. And what I see among people is that they're just trying to make the triad less negative and in no way nurturing. Nurturing. I have pioneered ways to make the triad nurturing, because if we can't make a triad nurturing, there is no hope for the family. And so people have developed a lot of manipulations to try to keep this less harmful. Murray and I see differently about that. As far as I'm concerned, Murray and I are old friends. We were two of the people that got together long ago in this. But I don't see where Murray sees how this can ever be a nurturing triad. He works at it from everything I know for how to make it less negative. But we still have the job, if we're going to be whole people, of finding out how to make a triad nurturing. And I don't know if this fits anything or not. Maybe you have something you need to say about that. But as far as I know, I'm the only one that's been working on how to make this nurturing, instead of working at the manipulation for how it should be less negative.
Well, would you say then that, I'm not quite clear about that, whether you would say that you have to take, here you had 4 or 5 situations where there was a triangle. That's the negative part of it.
No, their triad is the natural part.
Yeah, you called it the triad.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. The triad is different from the triangling. Triangling is supposed to be bad.
Well, no. Let's look at it like this. When you have a triad, you have the triangling comes in what I was showing you here, where the parts are not working together. You see, the natural look at the primary triad is there are 2 adults and a child, and that looks very uneven, and it is uneven. Okay? So all the power and dependency issues come in relation to that. So in people who are working at the negative ways in which the triad works, are working on the kinds of stuff that Murray's talking about, the triangulation aspects. Now we have to go beyond that, because they're all there. That's what I was showing here. But there are a lot of people who feel that that can't happen any differently. You could just make it less malevolent. I don't know if that makes any sense.
But you're saying that you can do something positive with it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And the positive, am I picking up that connection, that the positive really centers in this person equals person?
Right. Absolutely. That's exactly right. And then we go further with that in terms of the uniqueness of each individual, because that follows from that.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for that question. Yes?
This is just backtracking again to what you were doing on the stage there. If in the first couple, instead of the man having his hand down on the wife and being benign toward her, and there being a daughter, there were a son there. And in this relationship, on the other side, instead of there being a son, there were a daughter. Could you talk about what would happen then?
Well, just take a look, because we're still dealing with the same thing, except it looks a little bit... Here, let's see once. Why don't you come back again, and why don't you come back again this time? You have better crack at being a husband. And why don't you come and you be... Now, what did you want, 2 sons or 2 daughters? You come up here now, and you will posture these for me. I'll get you the bodies. You want 2 sons or 2 daughters?
No, a son and a daughter. But
all right, so would you come and be a daughter? Okay, now you posture them for me, so I can hear what you want to do.
Okay, this was the father, and the mother was
down, yeah?
Down position. Now there was a son over here. Okay.
Oh, wait, you better get... Where is our little microphone here? We always forget that.
Okay.
Including me.
First you had a daughter over here.
Yeah.
Now I'd like to have a son over here.
Son here.
And then the other couple over
Oh, wait,
here.
now, just a minute. Now, where do you want the daughter?
The daughter is over here this time. Okay, with the other couple. We need another couple, in other words.
Oh, I see. Now, what have you done with this what you want to do?
Yes.
Because that looks exactly like we had before.
No, we had a daughter over here.
Oh.
She wants to know where he's going to go.
Where he's going to go, okay? And now we need another...
We did that.
No, it's different.
He went with his mother the last time.
Yeah, but the mother was in the up position.
Oh, I see what you're talking
see what
about.
I mean?
Yeah, I hear. It's a change of the mother's position. Yeah,
Right,
okay.
right. And if we could have another couple here.
All right, would you pick up somebody, the two of you right here? Might as well play this often, and by the time we get there, we're used to it. All right, now would you posture them?
He's down. He's in the down position. And okay, and now what the daughter, how each of the children behaves. That was my question. And
all right, you're asking for the possibilities. All right, let's see what these two will do. Where do you want to go? Let's give her that. Huh?
Right in the middle, between the mother and the father.
All right, that has happened. Any of you find yourself doing that, trying to be the bridge between your parents? Okay. All right, that's certainly one. Where do you want to go? He wants to go outside of the whole thing. That's another possibility. But let's look at the possibilities that there are. One that he can do. Now, if he can get himself out of here, and this system makes it possible for him to leave, he can form relationships with grandparents or with schools or something of that sort. He can do that. However, if there is too much guilt around, and too much anger around, and not enough freedom for him to do that, you'll have to stay here and do something. Now, he could stay here and be crazy. He could stay here and be crazy. He could also, and I'll show you how to do that. Just put your feet together like this. Put your feet together like that. And turn him in, that's right, and move around. And just move around, that's all. Okay? That's right, okay. All right, now in a less, quote, serious, and I think these are all serious, but less serious, one of the things that you could do is go down and be with your mother. Go down and be with her. On the principle, deep inside, that she needs your help. Especially if this one gets a little on the tough side. That's right, that's right. So you take her and pull her toward you a little bit. That's right, that's very good, okay. Now, one of the things is that he'll get madder, of course, about this. And you may be, when you grow up, beat him up, I don't know. All right, that's one thing that you can do. So that if the police were called to this family, it would be you and him fighting. And you hysterical on the floor about these two men. That's right, exactly. That's exactly right. Another way, come here, for you, is to join him. Join him and make your mother your total charge. So both of you lift her up and take care of her. That's right. You just take her both in your arms. She doesn't weigh so much. Just take her like a baby in your arms. Like a baby. You know, you don't have a baby like that. That's right. That's it. Okay. That's right. Okay. So this is a place where the men take care of the woman. That's good. That's another one. Okay. Yeah. And there are plenty of families organized this way, where the men are the caretakers of the woman, the sons and the father. So that's one of the ways. So you reduce her. And it looks so happy. It's terrible, but it looks so happy. All right, now go back down there again. Another thing that you can do is to try to improve the situation. Improve it by getting your father to stop being mean and trying to get her to get up. Now I'll show you what happens. Here's you try to get him to be mean. Now when you do that, then he'll raise the finger to you. All right? But now don't let him pick you up. All right, now I would say that that child, whether he's 18, 20, studying psychology or not, is going to have an experience in failure. He can't make his father stop yelling, and he can't pick up his mother. And there are plenty of us in the field that come from that kind of stuff. In fact, I even have thought that almost all of us try to make our families better. And when we can't succeed, then we try other people's families. And sometimes we can succeed with them when we weren't able to succeed with our own. So there are all kinds of possibilities. Now there's another possibility, and that's the one that lots of changes has to happen for that to happen. You're down there, and you are alternately patting her head and scolding her, and alternately scolding him and pushing him away and inviting him to come, because those double messages are all over the place. Now the other thing is that you, let's say individually, find out you can stand on your own feet. Just you're standing on your own feet. So you do not respond in the same way that you did before. Well, puzzle him, but you can't continue to do that. When he attacks you, you don't attack him back. And you were able to say things more clearly and so on. It's a hard job. This is a job we used to put on people when we worked with them individually. And a lot of people couldn't take it. And they had to either, somebody else in the family had to fall on their face, or they had to. So, but then that you were able somehow to see that there could be something, and you find some kind of help somewhere. Yeah, okay. That's right. Some kind of help someplace. Or that somebody just asks you to go somewhere for help. And you find yourself being able to do something. It could be, because I knew this, at World War II, you would have gone off to war maybe. You came back with some very, very powerful experiences, so that all that blaming, placating behavior you had, you'd gone way beyond that. And you were able, through patience and so on, to enable your family to see you differently. It took a while, but those things happen. Therapy isn't the only place where this takes place. I think it's important because we learn something. But then how the rest of the system has to change in order to respond to it. Yes. Why don't you hang on to this for a minute, and I don't have to have two.
What happens if she gets up?
All right, let's look and see what happens when she gets up, because that's what happened in the women's movement. Would you hang on to this for a minute? She got up. All right. Now, when she got up, many of the women that got up did not get up this way. You get up with your finger at him. That's right. But give him this one first. Give him this one first. That's right. That's right. Okay, now this guy has to change something. Now, a lot of them got up and went right out the door. That's right. They got up and went out the door. Now, of course, they leave these two behind. Everything changes. Everything has to respond to everything, and some change is going to take place. Yes?
Well, my experience has been that in working with couples, a lot of times when the wife gets up, the guy leaves. The guy flees.
All right, let's look at the possibilities. Let's look at the possibilities. You want to just move us aside there for a minute, young man. All right, come here. Let me show you what I've seen. Down on the floor, because you're a woman, and this is what you're supposed to do. You got tired of looking down at the floor. Why don't you just turn a little bit toward him here, this way. Okay. So now, at a certain point in time, you got up and gave him the same treatment with your finger, okay? All right, okay. Now, when you did that, just put your finger out like that, he got scared and he went down. He went down, and this nauseated you. Nauseated you. And you tried to get him to get up a little bit, okay? That's right. That's right, okay. Now he thinks that you're a bitch, and at this moment in time, he doesn't see anyway, so you move off. Okay. Now you're both happy and sad about it, but you gird yourself for action. That's one thing. Okay? Come back now. All right, so you get up here now, and you stand tall, and like you're going to run your own life at this point in time. And then he gets down because he's scared, and you walk off. Walk off. Because you see somebody else over there who can stand up and be somebody, okay? Yeah, that's right. Now, there's another story to this one. All right, so here it was, the beginning, down there, down. And now you get up, and you recognize you're relieved. And you're like those two men that I heard talk in an airplane not so long ago. One guy said to the other one, "Is your wife into this woman's liberation business?" And there was a long silence, and finally the other one said, "Yes." So another silence, said, "Well, how is it?" He said, "You really want to know?" "Yes. I finally discovered that I have 2 feet. She stands on her 2 feet, and I am very relieved." So now, you're relieved. Yes. And that's what's happening more and more now. More and more now. But all these things are possible. And the leaving can have any kind of forms. I mean, it can be forms of violence. It can be forms of just skipping out in the night. The form of leaving, the form of the change differs with different people. So there's not one thing, one particular form that happens. There are many forms that happen. Okay. And then if the kids try to get into the act a lot of times, and that's not too successful. All right. Okay, does that, yes?
Is there such a thing, in terms of form, is there a form?
Is that microphone on, Jim?
Is there a form in a family where both of the two in the couple are both on their knees?
Yep. I should say there is. How about, let's get a man from back here, the young man with white hair. How about that one? And bring up a woman. Find a woman somewhere. Going to bring a woman up?
Come on in.
All right. Now let's see, and we'll have back there in the second row a kid. But I'm going to show you that one. All right. Now what you do is, you see, we're going to do that picture.
Okay.
You each flop on each other, and each is holding the other up. That's very good. Okay. Now hold each other up. Okay. You're leaning on her, and she's leaning on you. That's what you're talking about, right? All right, now keep that same position more or less and get down on the floor where you can even show better that you're flopping on each other. That's good. Now, there are your parents. Would you make some sounds like you're weeping a little or you're aching or moaning a little? Now, where is the kid? Where is the kid? Yes, come. Yeah. That's right. Help me. Say help me to your okay. All right, there are your parents. Help them. Yeah. That's what we call, in our textbooks, we call those two dependent people.
No.
And these are the ones that the people will tell you in their offices, I had to be a parent to my parents. They were good. They just were weak. Here it is. Okay. So that's a possibility too. All right, now wait a minute, stay down there for a minute, because there are a lot of people who think this is terrible. Every position has its pro side and its con side. Now, I would just like to mention that to you so you can keep a perspective on it. Now, with those two, let me tell you what happened with those two, that they come out like this. Both of them were brought up like topsies. They didn't have anybody to take care of them. They're good people, and they found someone that they feel will really care about them, and it gives them a purpose in their life. They are not disturbed people. These are not disturbed people. These are people who just have been deprived. And so they get a great deal from touch. They don't feel like they can manage too much because they haven't been taught too much. One of the things is I've done a lot of work with the so-called dependent people, dependent people, and have taught them a great deal about how to stand on their own feet. These are not disturbed people. These are not people who grew up with double-level messages. They're just people who just grew up. And many of them grew up without any particular kind of stimulus. Good people, good-hearted, and all of that. They just need to learn. See, one of the things for me, at least at this time now, is I believe that we did therapy a terrible disservice because we didn't teach. We didn't teach what it's like to be human. We made a mystery out of it. We didn't teach. So these people here just need to have some kind of teaching because they're willing and they're smart, but they don't know that they could even go further. And they don't know that they could do some things for themselves. Because the children that come out of this kind of thing are usually kind, and they are not disturbed children. But they also get frustrated because in a funny way, these kinds of parents have given their kids something that they didn't have. They've had lots of holding, they've had lots of kindliness, they've had lots of attention. And the kids, and they give their kids as much as they can give them, so they've got much more learning. So the part here is that you get frustrated because you see yourself doing so much better than what they do. But you don't know how to talk to them. And that's a different thing from a pair of parents who are trying to make their kids to do the things that they couldn't do. That's a totally different experience. So we have to be discriminating among them. But these are really nice people, and they're actually very easy to just pick up. They never think about it, but they are very connected with one another. But they can easily grow. When I first started a long time ago, and I made my career with the people nobody else wanted. And I was amazed to find out what a little teaching would do. Kindness, courtesy, being attentive to people would do for lots of people. Lots of people. I remember one family. It was in the Depression, and all they had was bread, old bread, and prunes and dry milk. Well, I remember the woman went into a panic, and I went and gave her a cooking lesson on using her bread, her prunes, and her milk. I taught her how to do that. And I taught her all kinds of other things. And to the degree that I was able to teach her and she was able to learn, she began to develop some new parts to herself. See, I think this whole business about therapy, we haven't been discriminating enough about what goes on.
Would this also be the same kind of child that could get violent? I mean, with that frustration?
Not
No?
with you two,
Oh.
No, the violence has to appear in the couple. Has to appear in the couple. And I will show you what that would be like. Wait a minute, what happens to our microphone?
Here it is.
There it is, okay. All right, let me show you how it would have to be. This would have to be there, but there would also have to be a heavy control one, which was that you're supposed to do what he wants, and he's supposed to do what you want. And periodically there would be terrible fights, and you would do to win-lose.
Somehow, that doesn't sound, there sounds some similarity to me in what we were role-playing before.
Which was?
When they were both down.
Yeah. What about that?
Well, the one wanting the other to be like the other somehow there sounds some similarity to me in that.
Can you go back down here again? Sure. There are people, it's all right, nothing terrible will happen, but your husband may be upset. When people have made a synchrony of this kind of thing, and they have, and I've seen it, just they're mutually dependent on one another in a very basic way. And they don't get into these violent quarrels. But there's another set of people who are mutually dependent that do get into these quarrels. They're just as capable of flopping on each other, just flop on each other, and having all kinds of love stuff and using each other as supports, and the next minute to be able to be fighting with each other because something didn't go off. That's a different kind of thing. That's not the same. And then you get violence. And then you get all this remorse and grief. But the seeds of violence are different also. Because there's another kind of violence that comes from people who are double leveling each other all the time. I ask you to do this, you do this, then I tell you it's wrong. Then you try some more, and you try very hard, and I give you a promise, if you do that I will love you, and then I withdraw, and I can get a knife in my back that way very easily after a certain length of time, because there's no place I can go. Yes?
I see it.
Thank you.
One question I have in the same dependent relationship with the child.
Oh, give her, that's fine, thank you. Let's see what we can do to keep this microphone on.
All right. My question is, in the dependent relationship with the parents, I see where the child could become very violent, saying, you're not supplying me with what I need, and I know it's available in other families, and I'm just sick of your weakness and dependency, and her or his rebellion, I can see a serious problem.
I suppose some of that could happen, but on the whole, that's not where it comes from. Those kids just go and do something else, because there's nothing to keep them there. They just go and they've got enough. They can move out, and these parents are only going to be glad for whatever they get. I've seen that. See, a lot of the old stuff that I used to think of, that we were taught, that everybody had to have a certain kind of feeling about something, I found isn't so. The kids of this kind of a family would get violent if what they did made the parents angry or withdrawn from them. It is different. You see, what we're doing is making more and more discriminations.
The kids only get violent if what?
When there are double-level messages in the family. There is no violence with this kind of thing. There can be frustration, but no violence.
Violence doesn't have to be modeled. It's just more the double-level message.
It's both modeled and that. And when you get to the end point, but come up here a minute. I want to show you something. I'll show you how to get violent.
Somebody with a question there with the mic.
Okay. You want to ask that question again? Thank you.
No, I have a different question.
No, I want her a question before you get one, okay?
I was just trying to get clear if violence had to be modeled.
No, doesn't. I will show you how one, modeling is a piece of it, but let me show you. All right, you're my daughter, okay? So I'm going to call you Maria, okay? Oh, hello, Maria, dear. How are you?
Hi, Mom. How are you?
Listen, you hug me too tight. Don't do that like that. Well, why aren't you coming and doing it, hugging me? You know I need it.
Well, I don't know how.
Listen, I'm your mother, and that's no way to talk to me. Come here and hug me. Now, you know you wanted to do that all the time.
Yes. Well, yes, I did.
You don't sound very happy. Be happy with me.
I'm happy. I'm happy, Mom.
Well, I don't like what's going on here right now. I raised you to be an honest child, and you're just not being an honest child. Tell me what's going on in you. You don't have to see violence to want to kill somebody. Could you be...
Or yourself.
Or yourself, yeah.
Do you turn it in or out?
Sure.
Yeah.
Because remember, violence always is in response to something. But this kind of thing, after a while, when you got you down to the wire, nothing you do will please me. Nothing that I ask you to do and that you try to do, I will give you any evidence at all that you are doing what I ask you to do. See, real violence, we don't have that much. It only looks like we have that much. The violence, the effect of violence is much stronger than the number of people who engage in it. Just remember that. If there are 65 kids in a school and one of them has a terrible fight, it looks like all 65 have it. So one of the things we have to be aware of is that real violence is not that and it's not that frequent. It only looks like it.
So if I can't fight you, I may go fight somebody else.
That's another thing that you do, certainly. Certainly.
Could that be solved by her falling to her knees?
About what?
By her going into the down position.
No, nothing would have been right.
No, nothing would have been right. There is
Can't win.
no way she can win. No way she can win. When we get boys like that, I've seen it a lot with boys, when there's no way they can win, then they start manipulating society. See, Hitler was like that. There's no way he could win.
I'm very curious about what produced the role you were just in.
For me, all right. When I was growing up in this kind of thing, I couldn't please anybody either. I'm very bright, you see, and I know here what I want, but I have no awareness of myself because I was never noticed. And so I can find fault with anything. The modeling that I'm using is the fault finding that was used with me. I have found this a lot in very religious families, where the religion is not related to life, but is something out there that you're supposed to do to save yourself or some such thing as that. And that gets pretty heavy.
I'd like to go back to the earlier section where you had the child and the parents. And my question is, what happens when the child actually is in conflict and does not feel to go to one or the other parent, but in fact wants both?
All right, I'll show you what happens. Come on. Why don't you bring up your parents and let's see, take a look. You see where we started, 3 or 1. What we're talking about are situations in which we can't be one. We have to separate ourselves. All right, so let's see what you want to show me.
I need a mother and a father. Okay, how about a father? A man?
Yeah, that would pass for a father, man, yeah. You need another one?
No, I just need...
All right, okay, now, posture those two.
Now, they're probably...
You want to put that up there so people can hear you?
Okay. I don't know if they're going to be... I don't know if you're going to be, you know, the one-upmanship or not, but there's going to be a struggle, a conflict between the two of you. So maybe the two of you are standing but struggling or fighting in some sort of way, like a power struggle.
All right. Okay, all right.
But subtle.
All right, let me show you the subtle power struggle on that one. With one hand, you try to bring her toward you, and with one hand, she tries to bring you toward her, and with the other hand, you are pushing each other away. So one hand is pulling toward you, and the other is pushing away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. That you will see often. That's this one. You know that one? All right. Now what's your question?
Now, if I have to choose sides, I don't feel like choosing sides. I want to have both of them. So I don't choose sides. I want both, and I want to know what happens to the child in that situation.
All right. Let me show you what happens. You take this now, and if you have words, I'll give them to you. In your struggle, now you try to bring them together and toward you. You keep on going with each other. See, there's no way that you can, in this thing, not either fail and to get each one of them or work hard enough to separate them, in which case you've made a choice. There's no way that you can have both of them.
So then the child does, I'm wondering what happens to that child later on, though.
But different things will happen.
Yeah.
It's either you can't have just a one-to-one. But when the child tries so hard, they, I think, end up being people helpers.
Oh, thank you.
Some of them do. Yes. But trying to help, it's a helping kind of thing.
When I've seen this I've seen it 3 times very clearly, and in all 3 times, a teenager was the one who brought the kids in by getting into drugs. And when you work through the teenager, and the teenager stays clean, and the parents then say, well, we've got a problem. But it's the kid that brings them in, and actually brings them into the help. I don't know, it just happened to me 3 times. Whether I can generalize, I don't know.
This does happen. Yes, it does. There was a hand up here somewhere. Yes.
I just wonder what that power struggle would have been like if there were other family members available to the child.
All right, let's look at that one, because first of all, if you're looking at least from where I see you, you have 2 people, and these 2 people, the male and the female up here, are actually the sources of power, however the child wants to look at them, okay? So here's the child, and the child wants to do some interfering, because I think children are always trying to right things. All right, this is this triad in operation. However, here is the family map. And let's say this child, the one we're talking about, is right here. And so is trying to make the way and can't do it. Now then, next place is where does this child fit in with this child in relation to these 2? Now let's suppose that this child has somehow made it so that it is on the father's side, or the mother's side, the adult female side. So this one has made a connection over there. And this one has made a connection over here with the father, the adult male. This one is out in left field. No. This one is unable to make any kind of connection with either the brother or the sister, so it can go outside the family, maybe. Could be the dog. It could also be that this child could move into another emotional state. It could be that this child can form relationships with a teacher or something like that, possibly, if that were possible. Or if there were no room to move out of this family, that kid would get increasingly disturbed.
If the siblings came together, would they then stop trying to get to mother and father?
Well, you know, there's a whole big thing about what happens in the subsystem, so to speak. I see different things happening. First of all, what I see more than anything else is that the siblings reproduce the covert parts of the relationship over here. So the first 2 kids are very likely to reproduce what's going on here. I do not see sibling relationships as separate and apart from this. They look like they may be, but I have not seen where they really can be. So these 2 are somehow repeating this. Now let's suppose there's another one. Let's suppose there are 3 younger ones. These 2 can take on parenting functions for those 3. Because what they're doing is duplicating what's going on here. Now when you have at least my experience, when you have lots of years between 2 siblings, you usually have 2 families on the parental level of things. When you have families, I don't know how many of you work with big families, but there are all kinds of systems within the family, but they're all related basically to this. The families you were talking about, when the kid will go in and get for help, that's a part of the family system, and that kid that does that has been the one in the system who has been given, on a covert level, the spokesmanship of the family. Thank goodness for that. Well, anyway, yes?
Are the dynamics similar in interracial couples?
When you get into the interracial situation, the dynamics about who, all the things are exactly the same, but what they talk about is different. Because you can have the same upsmanship going on. See, the thing that bothers me in the world is that people do not see that the process of what's going on is universal. And they don't see that because they can say, well, this is a lesbian pair, or this is an interracial pair, or this is something like that. But the processes are identical. It's just that the words people use are different. You know, I've been around to all the cultures that I can think of. There are many, maybe I haven't, but in the world. And people would say to me, well, when you go to Nepal, you should do this. And when you go to China, you should do that, and so on and so forth. And you know what I found out? I found out that all the books that tell you about what you should do in relation to people are all off base. And when I figured out how to work with the navel, I didn't have to use all these forms. When I went to the Arab countries and they were saying to me, you should stand so many feet and you should not look at somebody like the American Indian people, you're not supposed to look at them. I worked with the Indian people for 8 years. I know better than that. I know that the thing that is top of everything are our navels and our peopleness, and all the rest of it is just style. And I have no objection to people having style, except you don't go anyplace if you don't get to the navel. Yes.
I'm thinking about that system that you just pointed out. Okay. I just wonder what it would be like if it was a grandmother. Is that better? If that was a grandmother that had something to do with that power struggle.
Oh, a lot of it.
What would happen to those kids?
Well, I'll show you one of the things that happens to the kids. Let's suppose that here is the adult female mother, and here is her mother. Now we have to remember that her and her mother all grew up together. And whatever is going to be there, this is adult female grandmother, whatever is there is going to be related to what goes on with the kids. Let's suppose that these two were very competitive. The kids are going to get right in the middle of that. That's one. Let's suppose that this one accepted the fact she never grew up, and the grandmother treated her as though she never grew up, so these come in as her siblings. So when I look at a family, and I look at it in terms of the grandparents are related to the grandchildren, but what is the key to how this all works is the relationship between those two. How many times have kids gone to grandma when mama wouldn't allow something to happen, took their side, and then said to them, don't tell mother, because I don't want to get in trouble with your mother. Or through the father, I don't like your father, and so I don't want you to be like him. Or, as I found another one, the woman, the grandmother, liked the son-in-law much better than she liked her daughter. See, again, we have to look at that in terms of what is the basic. And the basic for me is whoever it is who was involved in giving me the egg and sperm and then providing the nurture, support, and direction. And that's where all of this stems